Hello and many thanks for joining us on this edition of People, Politics and Power. I am Imonia Marere. In a little over 3 weeks' time, the campaigns for the 2023 elections, particularly the presidential and National Assembly elections, will officially commence. And of course, that is going by the schedule of activities released by the National Electoral Commission, that the electoral management body in Nigeria, INEC. And politicians, as we know, have already cleverly sidetracked the rules by going about their campaigns under different guises. Campaigns have never really ceased, in actual fact, at any time before and after the party primaries. However, most of the campaigns have been devoid of critical issues of national interest and development, but have rather been along Nigeria's well-known fault lines of religion, ethnicity, clan or regional and cultural identities, and in most recent times, political, personal or family resource polarizations. These are unfortunately the major divisive factors that have characterized and continue to define the country's politics. These intolerant polarizations have divided and continue to divide people, families, and societies as never before along partisan lines. The more worrisome aspect of this is the toxic language and political narratives deployed by the players in the conversations which tend to flout the norms of civility. None of the fixations address critical issues of poverty, insecurity, unemployment, deplorable healthcare system, declining education standards, food security, and high cost of living. What then does religion, ethnicity, regionalism, and all such primordial polarizations have to do with the people's welfare? What do these primordial forces bring to the table? How much has political correctness contributed to service delivery? And why do Nigerians persist in drawing and sustaining these fault lines? Is it a conspiratory elite agenda to keep the masses under control? These are some of the questions that have been asked over time. How can Nigeria be weaned off these agenda and return to the path of democratic practice, where real issues of development, people's welfare and well-being, the real purpose for which governments are formed, are put on the front burner, and move away from the vicious personal attacks and maligning of opponents? What issues do Nigerians want to see canvassed and discussed during the impending campaigns? These are the issues we will be taking a look at on the program today, and I'm joined in the studio by Professor Yusuf Zwaka, who is a political scientist. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us.
Thank you.
We're also joined by Nwadishi Faith. He is the Executive Director, Center for Transparency and Advocacy. Thank you so much for finding time to join us. And we are also being joined via Zoom by Austin Aigbe, who is a Senior Program Officer, Center for Democracy and Development, who is joining us all the way from Luanda in Angola. Thank you so much for joining us, Austin.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the program. Let's begin with you. What do you expect to be the focus of the campaigns when they do kick off in, say, 3 weeks or thereabouts time in Nigeria?
Thank you so much. As a Nigerian, having lived in this country, I expect that the issues that are paramount or of priority to Nigerians should be the campaign issues that will be discussed during campaigns. For instance, as a woman, my first priority will be the candidates addressing how they will look at the gender issues, especially the constitutional review. What is it that they're going to do differently? We know that there were 5 bills that were sent to the National Assembly and those were not passed. We need to see a candidate that is very gender sensitive, understand what the issues are, so that when he's talking about, you know, making provisions for women, he's looking at it with a gender lens. And we need to have some of those conversations on the table. Another concern of that I have is, as a parent, also looking at the issue around the ASU strikes that we have had, the educational sector. A lot of children are out of school because of insecurity. Beyond that, what will be on the table? What are the plans for the children to remain in school? For instance, in the FCT, you know that children were hurriedly sent out of school because of insecurity. Now they are supposed to resume, and they have extended that again by another 1 week because of the same sentiments around insecurity. And the whole issue around, you know, for a very long time, we've been looking at our economy supported by the oil and gas sector. What new things will be on the ground? Now we no longer have an NNPC, so to say, that is usually the ATM. So what other plans will be on ground? We have seen that in the last few years, we have been in and out of recession. What is on ground? And most importantly, not just saying them, sounding them off, but giving us a blueprint, giving us milestone by milestone. This is how it will be addressed. And, you know, moving away from this name calling, blaming game, but putting critically on the table, bringing out blueprints and setting dates for achieving the achieving of all of these issues that will be put on the ground, maybe coming when the campaigns really kick off.
Some milestones for some of these issues.
Yes.
All right, Prof. Are you concerned that what we have seen so far, though not official campaign time, but what we have seen so far is a situation where there's been a lot of name calling, there's a lot of religious sentiments, ethnic sentiments, and what have you. Are you concerned that this could translate to what becomes the main issue when the campaign starts proper?
If you look at what has happened, you know, since the candidates of the major political parties emerged, I think that will tell you that really we are here to get out of these problems of religious sentiment, which is usually being manipulated by the elites who are, you know, their own shortcut to power. You know, is when you have nothing to offer, really. You see, the only way you can mobilize the people is to mobilize them based on those fault lines, ethnicity, religion. And that's why you find a lot of discussions around those issues. And it's not as if it is completely out of place, because Nigerians are concerned. If you take, for instance, people trying to say they want to replicate what happened in 1993 in 2023, I mean, it appears to me as if maybe they were not either aware of the situation then and now. The conditions are not the same, you know, and therefore any serious politician in Nigeria haven't seen the kind of crisis that were faced with the Boko Haram, particularly. I don't think you will just take for granted that people will not be concerned. You know, both Muslims and Christians will be concerned, because we know the Boko Haram have been killing people virtually all parts of the country. And you know what they've done is just to transmute themselves into kidnappers, into bandits. It's the same thing we're talking about, the same elements, because what they are doing is just to destroy the country. So we will have run away from such issues. But I think some of our politicians got it wrong, both you know, the major parties, because in the choice of, if you have agreed, for instance, that power is going to shift to the south, whether it is written or unwritten, because some of these laws are not written, they are just based on convention and practice. And therefore, if you have agreed somehow that power should shift to the south, then you know the preponderant population in the south are what type of people. You have to pick from such, you have to give some considerations to that. Because if you do anything outside that, it will raise questions. Then you cannot come back, a president is completely tenure from the north, then you produce a candidate from the north. I mean, what I tell people is that are they slaves? Are they slaves? Are they not Nigerians? And don't they have a right to aspire to office? So the politicians are deliberately, you know, trying to reduce our level of discussion to their own level, because for them they cannot transcend those sentiments, because that is what guarantees, you know, their access to power, and therefore they have to use it to the maximum. And that's what we are really seeing. It's not as if they're doing anything differently from what has been happening in Nigeria.
Now, Austin, you are in Luanda, in Angola. Angola has just come out of a general election, a presidential election, which saw the re-emergence of the current president of Angola. Now, you were part of those who observed that elections. You've been there for quite a while. Tell us, what was the situation like in Angola compared to what we are seeing here back home in Nigeria and what we're likely to see when the campaigns kick off?
Thank you so much. Even though Angola is a lot more like a parliamentary system, a bit of difference from what happened back home, but there's some uniqueness. I see a reduction in terms of the kind of expenses, the kind of monies we spend in an election, both from electoral management body and from the candidate. In Angola, you just have one ballot that determines all. Whereas in Nigeria, you have all the ballots from the state House of Assembly, and each polling unit are coded to National Assembly, to the gubernatorial seat, then the presidential. So you have all of those ballots, and they are all different. But yeah, you just have one ballot that determines the president, who then make up the majority of the percentile that the party gets determines who become president. More like what you see in the UK, but a bit of difference because of the way they are structured, because of the way their own party system works. A bit different. But one of the critical lessons I got from here, like I just said, is that there is no much ado about political office. It's not more like like in Nigeria, where there's a do or die affair. Even though the opposition tried to put some storm, called for some protest and all of that after the poll because of the percentage differentials and all of the things that happened, the party in power has ruled Angola since after the Civil War. So it's been on like that. We must find a way. Going back to the issue of issues, we must find a way, as we continue to improve on our electoral system, to reduce beyond what we now see the cost of election, which then flows to the cost of governance and flows to the cost of corruption, and all of that, almost all intertwined. As we head to Nigeria election, the critical matter that should be on the table is the greatest of the challenge. If you remember, sir, it was in 2007 that we had the first end of a tenure, where President Obasanjo ended his tenure, 2-10 tenure, and so there was going to be another president. What dominated our conversation was the militia group in the Niger Delta and across, of course, not the way we have it now in Nigeria. In 2015, when a change of government, first ever change of government change of party in Nigeria, was also dominant on security challenge. Today, again, we are back to this dominance of security challenge until you resolve the nations of poverty and security. All of the conversation on ethnicity, religion, political party, all of this, we are all impacted, whether you belong to party A, B, or C, or you are from region 1, 2, or 3, or your affiliation is XYZ. We are all impacted by one monster, security challenge. It is when you have peace, you're able to build on other governance architecture.
All right, Austin, stay with us. Prof, let me come back to you. You notice that since Nigeria's return to democratic rule in 1999, one of the major features of the recognition of political parties by the electoral body is that parties must have constitutions, they must have manifestos which embodies the programs they intend to pursue if they get elected to power. Well, these are submitted to the electoral body. But you also notice that candidates almost at every level ignore these constitution and manifestos of their parties while campaigning and put forth their own agenda. But even when they campaign with their manifestos, when they get to power, they jettison such manifestos. So why is it that we have political parties behave in that manner in Nigeria?
Because they are not parties. Simple. If they are political parties, you share similar ideas. People who have similar ideas come together, associate to form a party with the aim of capturing political power, which means they should have a program which all of them should subscribe to. Then when you have people who are just in a party, don't forget that their main reason of belonging to some of these parties is to capture political power. For them, all they want is just to get the power, not that they are really interested in the programs of the political party. And that is why you find, for instance, if somebody is in party A and didn't get the ticket, he can easily jump to party B. If he doesn't get in party B, he goes to party C. All he's interested in is to contest, because when he gets into that office, he gets into luxury. His life changes. And that is what is important to most of these people, not what service they will render to the people. And that is why you find that there's no principle and there's no party, no any serious attention being paid to the programs of the party. And that's why you won't find currently, as we're witnessing, even though campaigns have not actually started, there's a complete distancing. You know, if you take a political party, from they are the one governing, but the candidate is completely distancing himself from that government or from the programs of that government. Then what sort of, that tells you there's a problem with the practitioners. You know, in Nigeria, we have a problem with the practitioners. And that's primarily the problem. If we can have, you know, people, if you take the first election that was conducted in this country was in 1923. It will be 100 years by next year. And we have not really had any serious, you just imagine what Austin was talking about, the cost of, you know, just, you know, conducting elections. Over 300 and something billion naira is going to spend in the 2023 elections. The last one was 189 or so billion that was spent. Couldn't we have, you know, really reduced the cost of even conducting elections? So the elections are becoming more and more costlier. Very soon we'll get to 1 trillion naira just to conduct elections. And that is really something that is really very, it means we don't even have priority for our own our country. And most of these individuals are not patriotic. That's just the simple part. They are not patriotic. If they are, in fact, a lot of people are clamoring that, in fact, the young people should be allowed right now to come in. Why are the old people still insisting that they want to be there? If they love their country. These ones have energy, clearly. Quite a number of them have issues and still struggling to say that they must contest. I mean, and you find a lot of people, because it's a matter of bread and butter. So supporters will always be there because you are going to feed them, so they will come, support you. Because poverty itself has been weaponized, you know, in Nigeria.
Now, Faith, in the Second Republic, you saw political parties that had well-defined programs and manifestos. And, I mean, in most of those political parties who got to power at different levels, whether at state or even federal level, had their candidates toe the party line and implement party programs and the party manifesto. But since 1999, that has not been the case. So you see a governor who is elected on the platform of party XYZ, just coming up after being inaugurated to roll out his own agenda, completely different from what the party that he rode on to get to power is putting out there to the electorate.
Exactly, and towing the line with Prof. For me, I guess that's the fundamental reason why political campaigns cannot be issue-based. Because even those riding on the flag of a particular political party don't even understand their party manifestos and their constitution. Now, there was a time I did a study and looked at 4 major political parties and their constitution. I saw that the constitutions are towing the same line, and that's why it's so easy. It's really so easy. It's not about pushing the ideals of the political party. Even associations, they ascribe to certain objectives and have a mandate. But you see that the political parties in Nigeria, whether 91, whether 18, their mandate is to run for election and get office. And peradventure you don't get office, get appointed. Just be close to power. That's it. And so when it comes to having debates on issues and looking at the strategies that political parties have outlined in their own manifesto or to align within their constitution, there is a disconnect. There's nothing to show there. And because, again, internal party democracy is missing. If there's real internal party democracy where you put penalties in place, for instance, it becomes fashionable for a political party to say, oh, this is carrying out anti-party activity. What do you define as anti-party activity? Is it enshrined in your constitution? Is Is it part of your code of conduct? Is it what you intend to do? Because what happens is you follow the narrative of the people, but in fact, the people should set agenda for campaigns. The people and the media should be able to set the agenda, set the topics or the issues that will lead people into campaigns. But what do we see? People set that aside, and that's why you see that in the Second Republic, a lot of people who were because of the kind of programs they were pursuing in their locality, you will align that person to that particular political party. If this political party was for free education, you saw them at the state level enacting laws and pushing programs and activities that push for free education. And then, but what we see here is people come up with catchy phrases. It's just about the phrase. There's nothing about that. We saw it in 2015, for instance. We saw in 2015, the party in power came out with a list of things to be done for 100 days, one per week. And we thought that was the way to go. But by 100 days, that was jettisoned. Nothing, you couldn't even look at that. So it's really important that political parties need to go back to their constitution and bring up strategies and programs that align with that. Then it becomes difficult for you to cross-carpet from party A to party B, because when you go to party B, you will now have to learn the ropes to understand what is the ideal of that party. But all the political parties in Nigeria, 18 political parties, is just about campaigning and getting elected.
All right, Faith. Right, so Austin, let me come over to you, flowing from what Faith has said. Let's look at the political parties, particularly the so-called major political parties in Nigeria today. If you look critically, can you actually see a difference in terms of party programs and manifestos, in terms of what the candidates and their followers are talking about right now? Is there any marked difference between and among these political parties?
Thank you very much. Let me begin this conversation by drawing on the strength of what Prof said. There is no political party in Nigeria. There is none. It's just political association. And this association, they come together to win elections. Even though by constitution, INEC is expected to register them and confirm them as political parties. What is a political party? A political party has what is generally called an ideology, an ideological content. If you look at historical context of political party, Prof is a political scientist, is to then look at what do this party believe in. Far right, far left, you often hear of those words in political narrative. If it's right, what's your belief in economy? How do you intend to deal with issues of inflation? What are your roadmap to address corruption? So each party create that roadmap and have certain indicators, with KPIs, to measure those antecedents. I'll take you a bit to the UK system. When you have, because parties make up government, in all honesty, but in Nigeria, individual make up party. Again, talking about the UK system, when you have the Prime Minister of the UK from a certain political party, the opposition party creates its own secretary across the line item of development architecture. For example, there's always a shadow minister of agriculture, whereas there's a main minister appointed by the government in power or by the party in power. What does the shadow minister does or the shadow party does? It creates its own architecture. For example, the greatest challenge right now, maybe we can pick up, not security, let me pick on ASU because of the pending danger. If ASU is on strike, ASU is correctly on strike, what is the shadow government's plan to deal with ASU strike? They put it before the public. Why the government in power or the party in power is dealing with ASU using its own methodology and systems, the government in opposition or in shadow ministers is telling you, if we are in government, this is how will we address this issue. Coming back to the question about political association, in Nigeria, particularly in Nigeria and maybe across other African countries, political party system is the weakest system to consolidating our democratic architecture. When internal party democracy is a bit weak, it impacts on the governance of the state. If the people who determines who become candidate for an election does not require the majority of the members of the party, then it will impact on the governance system of the country. That is a challenge we have in Nigeria, where those who are the owners, permit me to use the word, owners. They are the ones who fund this party. Members of party literally don't pay dues. Governors, ministers, and all of those who own the party at the state level, they classify themselves as leaders of the party. They undermine the system of the party. And in any case, as Faith was saying, if you read across the constitution and the platform, campaign platform of major political parties, you will literally see the same thing. Why? Because they draw their strength from chapter 2 of the constitution. And you also know that chapter 2 of the constitution is not justiciable. So when a constitution, when a session, a chapter of the constitution that talks about welfareism and all of that is not justiciable, how then do you expect a political party's plan or manifesto to be justiciable? That's why there's always that candidate coming up with its own campaign platform to tell you that this and that and this is what I will do. It no longer aligns itself with the party, because automatically the party is supposed to win an election. When he wins, he becomes the person who becomes the leader. Now, the candidates of the parties are not necessarily leaders of the party, but by the time they win positions, they automatically become leaders of their party. That is a challenge we have our democratic system. For the now, there is no political party in Nigeria. We have political association.
Prof, there are those who say, and they have argued this over time, that the political parties in Nigeria are merely special purpose vehicles to attain power by the individuals who aspire to the various offices. And once they attain that, they jettison everything about the party and go on their own tangent and operate on a different wavelengths all together. Now, flowing from that is the fact that these special purpose vehicles can or have been damaged, some of them irretrievably over time. And so the individuals, like Austin put it, have now become the party and not, they are now like the tail wagging the dog rather than the dog wagging the tail. Now, Faith says it is time for the electorate, for the people, and for the media to begin to put forward, to set an agenda for these candidates and their political parties, even though they have manifestos and programs that they pledged they were going to work with. Now, how do we get the people and the media to begin to set the appropriate agenda for these people? And what is the guarantee that these candidates will listen to any such agenda setting in the first place?
No, I think the people can actually participate, in the process of trying to bring out what they should actually be telling the contestants, if they win, that they should do for the Nigerian people. And they can do that through maybe like the workers, they have a charter of demands, which they have already presented, particularly within their own party, the Labour Party. And I think they may eventually even do that with other political parties. And I think that is the way to go. That associations, group, the civil society, particularly, because they are the ones that are organized, that can invite these contestants maybe to a forum where they will be asked to address some of these issues. But I think the problem generally is with the political parties. The political parties, you don't see them; they are just waiting for the date for them to start this jamboree, going around the country and dancing and waving their brooms and sticks, and that's all. For them, that is the campaign. They are not really saying, okay, these are some of the programs that our candidate, if elected, is going to execute on behalf of our party. It's like the parties, once you have a candidate, they jettison the party, and they don't even go to the party, they just do what they want to do. And that's why you can see both the major parties are having problems, with their candidates. Because the contestants, those who contested, felt maybe they've been, they didn't have a fair deal, and so are causing a lot of, some distractions for the candidates. So I believe that the groups can actually be able to set out an agenda for, and at any rate, when you look at the Nigerian society as it is now, any serious political party should be telling us how they are going to resolve the problem of this insecurity, which is virtually all over the country. How will they resolve the problem of, the economy? Because rather than creating employment, we find a lot of people are unemployed, and they are even thinking of rationalizing or even implementing the Orosonye report. And that will also further lead to some kind of retrenchment of workers. So rather than create jobs, we are having people losing their jobs. And what do you do to electricity? Because it's a major problem. If you can even provide electricity, how are you going to do it? We should have some, and these things are not rocket, it's not rocket science. We have seen Egypt within 3.5 years, spending less money than what we have spent so far, generating over 10,000 megawatts of electricity, within 3.5 years. In our own case, it's rocket science. We always hear stories because we don't interrogate them in terms of, okay, this is what you say you're going to do, how are you going to do it? And we should have plans, if you say you're going to increase revenue, how are you going to increase revenue? For instance, we are hearing some people are already complaining, for instance, in Lagos, that you go, you build your own house, you fence your house, you have a garage, now you're asked to pay for parking your car in your garage 80,000 naira annually. And if you have more than one car, that means 160. And so, what sort of madness is that? I mean, people just think, is that how to generate revenue? Are there no other means through which you can, tax people? Provide service and tax for the service you are providing. You didn't provide anybody any service, you want to tax them. I think we should be able to ask questions. Not that these politicians are behaving as if they have just conquered and defeated the entire citizenry of Nigeria, and so they just do what they like. And I think we should be able to tell them, no, we have had enough of this. You have to come and explain to us how. If you say education, you are going to provide free education. How? You are going to provide anything you say you are going to do. How are you going to do it? We have things that we have some kind of advantage, comparative advantage over. Take agric, for instance. This country should be producing and supply other countries with very huge quantity of, tons of maize and all these other products that we have the advantage of producing. We have free rainfall here. The land is very fertile. We even have houses, grasses are growing on top of rooftops without you, watering them. While in Europe, they have to, plant these things and water them. In Nigeria, because of the fertility of the land, you have all sorts of things growing. And so we should be able to take advantage of these natural resources that we have. So creating jobs, I think it just requires people who can really have the wherewithal, the mindset, the will to be able to say, look, enough of this unemployment. We can be able to say, this state, we are going to give you a mandate and support you, with this kind of funding so that you'll be able to provide us with this. And then take care of, issues about, because once the economy can be improved upon, most of these insecurity issues will reduce naturally.
There is a concern that many people have expressed, and that is that the politicians are doing their own things the way they want to, but they have also carried along their supporters, active or inactive supporters, who sit at street corners, at beer parlors and discuss one candidate or one party or the other. And the trend is that they are the ones, in fact, who are feeling the attacks of the candidates or the parties against each other. So where you have the people who ought to be setting the agenda, setting the negative agenda, going about maligning people, abusing individuals, sharing all manner of things on the social media about individuals, and not paying attention to issues that ought to form the agenda on which their candidates should be talking about. How do you then expect the candidates themselves to begin to talk issues when their supporters and their sometimes even those who sponsor them are the ones who are putting the negative things out there?
Thank you very much. I think it was Prof that mentioned that the political class, they have successfully weaponized poverty in our country. And the reason for doing that is so that they can continue in power and continue the narrative the way they have gone ahead. Now, when you go to this beer parlor, sit-outs, where people sit down and discuss candidates rather than issues, there's somebody, a ringleader within them that has either bought drinks or done one thing or the other just to push them along those lines. And because for so long, politicians have come out to promise one thing or the other, and they have never really done it. So people say, let us see, it is what we see that we're going to take on. Let me take my own own share before it is. So if somebody puts something on the table, rather than discuss issues that will unite us, that will build the country, it's about the individual. And so they have so individualized all of that. So on the issue of trying to set an agenda, I think I should just chip this in. It is not enough for the candidate to come out to say, I will provide electricity. We were here in this country where somebody said electricity issue in Nigeria will take 6 months. And he became the minister for power and steel. And then for 7 years, we have not been able to resolve that problem. We should go a step further to demand that every promise made by the political class, especially political parties, they should go take it to the court and swear an affidavit to that, so that citizens can use that to hold them accountable. The kind of campaign that we see, I can come out, for instance, and say, oh, you know, I'm going to give everybody free housing. We have seen that. I'm going to give everybody free transportation. We have seen that. But there's never a plan on how to carry out that. And they has never given us a timeline on when this is going to be possible. They have never given us to tell us where the resources will come on how to address this. So you see, you come out and somebody says, for instance, children are at home, they're not going to school. There's the issue of insecurity. Somebody says, when you vote me into power, in the next 6 months, the issue of insecurity will be a foregone issue, and all of us are clapping. And that's what they will discuss. That this person is going to remove insecurity. Maybe there was something that the person did somewhere, and somebody says, oh, you remember that thing that person did somewhere? He was able to address that issue. When he comes into power, he will address all of these issues. So that is why the media should play a central role in galvanizing all of this. Civil society, we have our own role to also play. But when the message is out there in the media, so say, these are the issues we should be discussing. The radio stations, the local radio stations, beyond even the national media organizations that we have. Let the small media organizations, grassroots organizations also take this and begin to change that narrative, because they listen more. They listen more. But the problem is that the grassroots organization is funded by a politician. The state radio organization is funded by the state governor, who insists that it is the narrative that the state governor, the party in power in that state, should bring out. So they're not able to bring out information so that people can have that access to information and make the right decision. But we still cannot jettison the fact that it is citizens and the media that should be able to. That's why I really like the program that you run on AIT. Engaging the candidates. But how many people are saying that? How many people have access to that? We need to be able to bring it back so that even the councillor, by the time we begin from the grassroots, the councillor that is looking for election, it's not because you are affiliated to the party leader that you become that. And you know, there's something that Agbe said that I will just land on. Once you become elected, even if you are if you are a bag-carrying member of a political party, you automatically become the leader of the party. You automatically become the one who sets the rules and regulations. And that's why you say a governor who has not been a member of a political party from inception, followed through the party, understanding the principles of that political party, gets elected into office, automatically becomes the leader of the party. And that's it. So what are you going to promote? You are going to promote your own agenda. The party will now align. So rather than having issues around governance, around your political party, your constitution, or your strategy, what you are now doing is you are aligning. There's a common saying in Edo State, Umana lawyer, Urioya, so to say that when you don't become loyal to the person who has become the party leader, you will suffer. You will be taken out of the equation, even if you are pushing that the constitution and the manifesto of the party should be the leading factor, should be the basis for whatever thing. You will never be part of it. So people, rather than being kicked out, people rather than being sidelined, they want to just align and follow and keep the story. And the person who is at the bear parlor, who is discussing candidates, rather than discussing issues, is looking at one outing or the other on election day, what role are they going to give me? But beyond election day, they are not discussing what role will I play in that government to ensure that these programs are achieved. Rather, it is what role will I play so that my pocket is lined and for my meal for that day is taken care of. It's quite important.
Austin, how possible, I mean, what do we need to do to get political parties to have control over some measure of control at least over their candidates? You just talked about the system in the UK, for instance, where if you are a prime minister and you are not playing the ball according to the will of your political party, conservative or labour, you sooner than later find yourself out of business, out of job. How do we begin to do so here in Nigeria?
It's supposed to be a very simple task. It starts from the foundation of political parties, registration, foundation of our electoral system. It's a foundational issue. You can't deal with it from the ceiling. You have to go down to the root and begin to uproot all of those wrong foundations and begin to implant new ones. And what would that be? Is for some strength in the constitution, giving the electoral management body whose responsibility it is to monitor political parties. Because there have been jurisprudence in Nigeria where INEC has gone to, INEC has rejected, for example, in fact, there's even one ongoing now, I'm sure you are aware of it, where the party has done primaries and the one who won is the name of the person who won was not sent to the Electoral Commission. And INEC is saying that we observe this, we monitor this party primaries. This is not the fellow who won election. And based on that, the commission did not display that name. And you may have also followed up all of this disinformation that has characterized that rejection or whatever name it may be called. How do we get it done? If we empower the Electoral Commission, because right now we may not be able to uproot all of the foundation, but we can start by laying another solid ground to reinforce the foundation. So if we give the electoral management power to truly monitor political parties' operation, they are able to monitor expenses of political party. They are able to monitor the membership dues and all of that, even though the Supreme Court has said that the party is supreme, in quotes, that what any person the party decide to, whoever the party decides is a candidate, the INEC has no justification to reject those names. And that jurisprudence is on until we have to see the new jurisprudence that will be coming up any moment from now, to see how strong INEC will be to reject a nominee of a political party that did not participate in a party primaries, that did not participate in the process. That is on one side. A second aspect is to begin to look at the Constitution of Nigeria. The chapter 2 I mentioned, ab initio, is weak. Even the government of the country is not able to implement its own policies and program embedded in the Constitution that you sworn to. The 1999 Constitution, a lot of issues have been raised, but let's deal with issues of the part that gives citizens strength to call attention. I'm not going to be talking about recall, because I know that's an uphill task. We can't recall party officials who are not doing well or who are doing well. And if you also check the electoral system, if you are not part of a process, you have no right to question the process. If you are not a party member, you cannot question whatever is going on within that political party. So you will need party members to question whatever is wrong in the party, and party members are powerless, particularly those who are not paying dues, particularly those who don't know the leaders, who are not part of the cabalocracy, who are not within the system. If we're able to discharge and make members pay their dues, if members pay dues, they're able to call to question. If we empower electoral commission, they're able to put things aright and monitor their instrument appropriately. Until we do that, political party system will continue to rely on what they do, because garbage in, garbage out.
Prof, flowing from that is the whole question of party ownership and party control, and the process of reforming the political parties as we have them today. As it is today, certain individuals, like you have also attested to, own the parties, own in quote, because they are the ones who fund the parties. They are the ones who become leaders of the parties once they get to specific offices. And of course, they do not care about anything else, whether what the constitution of the party says or what the programs and manifestos of the parties are, they don't care anything about that. And so they go on to do anything they like and say anything they like. Now, how do we go about reforming these political parties and making them true democratic institutions?
You see, for me, I think this problem will have been resolved since around 2010 or thereabout, when the Waste panel came up with some recommendations suggesting that some institutions should be established, including a political party monitoring and some kind of administrative commission that will be charged with the responsibility of just monitoring the political parties, how they operate. You know, because as it is now, they're not being monitored by anybody, even though they are supposed to be monitored by INEC. But I think the job of INEC is so humongous that they don't have the personnel, neither do they have even those that will really be able to, you know, put these people in check. Because if you don't, every institution must be regulated. The banks are being regulated. All these telecommunications, everybody's, unless the political parties, they are all regulated, so they do what they like. And that's why it's very difficult. You find that somebody joins the party today. If, for instance, he's a governor of, let's say, APC, and he decomes to PDP, in that state, he automatically becomes the leader of the party in that state. And therefore, what he will be struggling, because he doesn't have any structure of PDP, so he'll be struggling, they'll be fighting in that state over the control of the structures of the political party. You can't have, at any rate, you are elected with a mandate to do something. I think there are a lot of loopholes that we need to correct in our system. Somebody will be elected into House of Rep. You are supposed to be representing people. They believe, you don't even believe in the party to start with. Because if you believe in the party, then you should be a member of that party. Whether you are winning or losing, you don't jump or run away. You remain within the party because there are some ideals that you have subscribed to, and you believe that you realize them. It can take long period, but with patience and working very hard, you arrive at your destination. So I think if you want to reform these parties, because in the first place, how do you, getting all these leaders, because you can see the crisis that they are going through now. Most of the major political parties, and most of them going into election with dual chairmen, with factionalized candidates, all sorts of problems. So when you even look at the scenario moving into that 2023, I wonder how they are going to, go through all these challenges and be able to have a peaceful election. You see, because if you are going to reform these political parties, just like Austin said, you have to go back to the foundation in terms of who are the members of the political party. You have to register, and not these bogus figures. One party will tell you that for 3 million. That's just, they're deceiving themselves. You see, when you start with deception, you cannot change. You have to be telling lies continuously until you exhaust your lies, and then of course people will say, "Oh, look, you have been lying all along." They have to have a register. If there are only 5 members in your party, be proud of your membership. Don't be giving us 40 million, 30 million, largest party in Africa, all those kind of trash. It's not going to help anyone. Build your party. So we should have, and there should be human beings living in those wards, not somebody is living in Abuja as a member of party in another place. No, you should be in that locality. You should be a member. You should start from the ward. If you look at what happened with the SDP NRC, when Babangida said he formed the party, and said people should go on. They are equal founders and equal joiners. Nobody's, because he was trying to do away with all these money bags. Now the problem we're having is that the money bags have hijacked, the parties. And you can see people, just using 100 naira to buy form. Someone didn't even come out. Eventually, at the end of the day, they didn't appear at the podium just to come and tell them the reason why he bought the form, why he's contesting. Which means you can just spend.
It was a mere contribution to the party.
No, you don't make contributions like that. So I think they need to look at the membership, because you have to start from the membership. And we must have a clear register of the members. Who are the members of these parties? Something that you can verify. If you go to, INEC has been battling with all this double registration, all those sort of things, just to clean the register so that you can have credible elections. I think the parties also need credible membership. And so if you have credible membership, that should be due paying. And we should begin to interrogate somebody coming to just dump 100 million, 200 million on the party. I think there are regulations pertaining to how you even, what is the limit of your donation to a political party. And people are just violating these things, and INEC is helpless, because how many cases can they be able to really handle? Even if they want to be going to the court. So I think there are foundational matters that need to be addressed from the foundation.
Okay, so Faith, let's have you have the last say on this, particularly on behalf of Nigerian women. What are you expecting when the campaigns kick off in another 3 or so weeks, as far as the women are concerned?
Yeah, I think I said that in my opening statement. For so long, the women have been marginalized. The women are the ones who stand out to vote in the candidates. So now it is important that candidates come up with tangible programs that they will have to enshrine the rights of women, especially as it concerns gender, on appointments, on other areas as it concerns women. I think that's one thing that is very important. But to quickly also say that while we are thinking about this issue of political parties and the leadership of political parties, people should sit down to think of the reason why the leadership of a political party, when they have internal issues, we look up to one individual, either the president or the governor, to settle the problem of a political party. We need to shift away from that. And going forward, I think that most of the things that we do, asking for campaign issues, should be things that are tangible, things that we can verify, and things we can hold them accountable to when they get into office.
Thank you so much. Well, Professor Yusuf Zwaka is a political scientist. He lectures at the University of Abuja here in the nation's capital. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Faith Nwadishi is Executive Director, Center for Transparency and Advocacy. Thank you for coming at such short notice. And Austin Aigbe, who is the Senior Program Officer, Center for Democracy and Development, who joined us all the way from Luanda in Angola. We wish you a very safe stay in Angola. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, and to you, our viewers out there, we want to thank you for investing your time with us. Please join us again when we bring you a fresh edition of the program People, Politics, and Power. Bye for now.